Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And today we are here to talk with somebody who has been through the wars, let's put it that way, of the divorce, and who is also a fellow podcaster, a best-selling author, and who has really made her mission in life to help people who are dealing with toxic relationships, high conflict individuals, narcissists, whatever you want to call them. Laura Richards is here to help us gain some perspective on this. So let me just tell you a little bit about Laura. She's an international podcaster and author dedicated to empowering women by providing a platform for sharing their stories. Through her acclaimed podcast, That's Where I'm At, Laura unveils her personal journey of recovery from a 32-year marriage to a narcissist. In addition to her podcast, Laura is the author of the best-selling book, There Is Hope, 52 Keys to Healing After Divorce. So Laura, you're a wealth of expertise, and I just read your bio and we already know so much about you. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. And actually, since I sent you that bio, my new book has come out, and it's a bestseller. So I'm really excited. It's called Married to a Nice Guy, with nice in quotes, because it's my journey of, being with a narcissist for 33 years total. So thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Well, and thank you. And I think that, the more that people are aware of, number one, kind of what the scope of a divorce can look like when you're dealing with a toxic, high conflict, narcissist, personality disorder, type B cluster group person. I mean, there's a million ways you can label this.
Yes,
right?
For sure.
When you're dealing with a jerk in your divorce, right, you really have to be prepared for this. So tell us a little bit about your story, Laura.
Well, we met in college. I didn't have a full brain, so I was young, oh gosh, there's so much to it, but, we were young, and we really rushed into our marriage. We had both been engaged before and stuff. And so we just wanted to get started with our life. And, so I remember looking back now, I can see, the love bombing and future faking really started early. I wanted to have kids and get married and have the, white picket fence sort of thing. And that's what he wanted too. So he told me. And so we did. I mean, we did this, but I really felt like I just wasn't ever good enough. I never felt really happy, supported. I felt like I was a failure in a lot of ways. And now looking back, because once you leave abuse, you actually have a lot of clarity because your brain is not in constant trauma. So you actually start healing. And so it's been almost 2 years for me. And so I've been doing a lot of healing, and things are actually still coming back to me. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's happening, or that happened to me. And you just don't even realize it. And so with narcissistic abuse, when you have a covert narcissist who's psychologically abusing you, it's incremental. It's that analogy of the boiling frog, that if you put a frog into tepid water and turn up the heat, they don't even realize they're being boiled to death. And so that's truly what happened to me. I didn't even realize. I had no idea who I was even dealing with until after I was divorced. Really, I didn't even know.
Right.
So that's the short version. We can break down all the stuff there.
No, and I appreciate that, because it's hard to encapsulate like 33 years of dealing with crap from somebody into a few sentences. So I really appreciate you being able to do that. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to just maybe talk about a little bit.
Sure.
One of the key things that, and the red flags that I always tell people, is when exactly what you described, we got into this, it was a really fast decision. And he seemed to want everything that I wanted, or she seemed to want everything I wanted. Those are two big indicators, and it's hard. Right. Like, maybe it is a nice person who's a really good fit for you, or maybe it's somebody that's scamming you from your very first date. And so I always say that those two, that in combination should be a huge red flag to at least postpone the marriage for 6 months or a year.
And you just have to really think about, that we're not in a society anymore where you have to hurry up to get married sort of thing. But, we have to look at ourselves as well. Now, we never blame ourselves for abuse because that's not what we do. But we can look at ourselves and see our patterns. And for me, I was an easy target because I wanted those things. And so he's like, well, we waited so long with our other partners to get married. Maybe we should get married quickly. And I was like, yes, and then we're societalized to be swept up off our feet, in our fairy tale. And so that's what it seems like. And so we have to remember what's our self-esteem issues, right? And so we have to, it's hard, but you have to look at yourself. And that's why I really recommend healing yourself. And now many people the first thing is going to take admitting there's even anything to heal, but it's learning healthy boundaries. It's learning your self-esteem. And so now I know that I don't need anyone to be like, I'm going to give you the world, when I'm sitting here thinking, I can get it myself. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the empowering part of getting through this, right?
Yes, for
sure. And I do think that you hit on a really big topic. And I'm not like the patriarchy is all out to get us. I'm not that. I'm on the side of feminism, but I'm not way over.
Yes.
But
yes.
I think the reality is we do set, especially young girls, up for this by having that white knight or knight in shining armor.
Yes.
Or, the prince is going to come and rescue you from the castle. I think all of that kind of stuff creates the perfect storm. Yeah. If you are in a vulnerable situation, people who have personality disorders can have like radar that detects people that
I'm telling you
vulnerable. They do.
They really do. And so, it's a compliment really that we are targeted by these people, because they do target people who are, they target the people who are strong and they seem to be outgoing. But they're targeting the givers, the people who don't seem to have boundaries. They're going to even maybe test you in those first few dates. The hard part is when you go on a date, you want to tell everybody, tell me everything about you. And unfortunately, it's like, you don't have to tell them everything. You can tell them a little bit. Oh, I enjoy doing that, or I enjoy doing this, because sometimes they'll hold it against you later, or they'll use it against you. You just have to be careful with that. Right. So I'm not saying we should test people or anything like that, but some things that I've learned along the way, though I'm not really dating or anything, is that I've heard is that, if you want to see if your partner or the person you're dating is toxic, like show up late somewhere, or don't text back right away or something, and see what happens. And this just came to my mind. And so this was an easy thing. I was out with a friend and she was taking a picture where we were at. And I said, oh, what are you doing with that? And I said, send that to me. She goes, oh, no, I'm sending it to my boyfriend. He wants to make sure that I'm actually where I said I would be. Okay, that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like so if you do it, then they know that you will do whatever they want. Right. And that's how incremental it can be. So you just have to think about, I don't have to send a picture. Why don't you trust me that I told you I'm going to this place? It's those kinds of things. But that takes self-esteem. So your first thing is going to be taking care of yourself. And I'm the same way, Marty. I'm not all like F the patriarchy. I'm not completely there. Do you know what I'm saying? I can be there. I can be there sometimes. But what the biggest thing is that when we stand in our, self-esteem and knowing I'm capable, and it would be a privilege for you to be in my life, and we can partner together to move forward. Right. You know what I mean? Not needing someone to complete me and not needing someone to rescue me. Yeah. So that coercive control, or that control. Yeah. The other thing that I think is a big red flag is if you can't, you're disencouraged. Is that a word? Or you're not allowed to bring your friends with you when you go out with your date, because guess what? Narcissists can be charming to one person, but they can't be charming if there's 7 people at the table. Exactly. They will be the center of attention in most cases. Although that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. You used a term that I'm starting to learn that there are different kinds of narcissists. You use the term covert narcissist. Can you explain that a little bit, Laura? Sure. Covert is the one where it's behind the scenes. So I have a lot of people who actually don't believe that I was married to a narcissist or that what I'm saying is actually true, that it didn't happen to me because no one else saw it. My kids saw it, but they weren't the target. I was still the only target, but my kids saw because it's only in the home. So literally shut the door and they are a different person. They're going and everyone else loves them. They're often pillars of society. They might be, running for public office, things like that. So that, things like that. We're just saying, I don't know. It could happen.
Well, there's definitely careers that attract narcissists. Like we know
Yes.
positions of authority are a big
Right.
draw to these people.
Right. And so I think when people hear the word narcissist, we're thinking of like that malignant or overt narcissist that is like full of himself and going around, maybe the boss of some show. I don't know, like
Or maybe a person running for president.
you never know. And he has, yeah, he's got a little bit of like a lot of the narcissists. Anyway, but for the one I was married to, I was the only target. So when everybody loved him, and that's why I named my book "Married to a Nice Guy" because
Yeah.
everybody's like, "What?" But he was so nice. I'm like, "Yeah, to everybody but me." That's the hard part, and so that's why there's different kinds. I forget how many different kinds there are. They're the hardest to spot,
Right.
and they are the ones that will fool everybody because and as part of and I have this in my book too. I talk about secondary gaslighting where people go like, are you sure that happened to you?
Right.
Because they can't believe that this person was that way to you. Maybe you're making that up.
Yeah, and I just read Rebecca Zung's book, and she talks
Okay.
about that group of people as the flying monkeys. They
Yes,
kind of
exactly. Yes,
go
that's
around and
exactly.
keep
Yes.
repeating what the narcissist has said because they are
Oh,
so
yes.
much a follower of that person. So
Yes.
I think that's really important because yes, we do have this picture of the narcissist as this grandiose,
Yeah.
bigger than life, like you
Yes.
said, really overtly, look at me. And that's
Right.
not the case with a lot of these people.
Right.
And if this doesn't seem to be ringing true to you, I want to point
Right.
something out. Spousal abuse or domestic violence or
Yeah.
interpersonal violence is a very private thing. And a
Yes, it
lot of
is.
people who are abusive to their spouses physically are also
Yeah.
very publicly outstanding individuals. Everybody
Yeah.
says, well, they go to my church and they're a good neighbor and they volunteer in the
Yes.
community. And how could they possibly be
Yeah.
abusing their kids or their spouse?
Yes.
And we know
Yeah.
that that's the case. Like we know that's a
Exactly.
fact. So,
Yeah.
Laura, so sorry, that kind of got us off track a little bit here, but one of
No,
the
it's
things,
important though.
well,
It's
it is.
important.
And I thank you for sharing that. One of the things you really focus on is how do you start healing
Yeah.
after you get, and let's face it, it takes a lot of courage to get out of these relationships because,
Yes.
like you say, you're that frog that's been boiling in that water for a long
Yes.
time. So it takes a lot of courage to get out because the narcissist starts telling you, you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. You can't do it. It's that steady drip of just
Mm-hmm.
tearing you down to nothing.
Yes.
So
True.
how do you get out? And then how do you start healing? Because I know that's your focus now with the clients.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about that they drive you a little bit crazy, and that word it's used in the spaces, narcissist spaces. They drive you so crazy that you end up in therapy often. So I ended up in therapy for a variety of reasons. And I don't think there's anything wrong with going on meds or any of these things. But the thing is that they often will tell the therapist that that's what you need because there's something wrong with her. Something's going on. They're trying to get other people on their side. Something's going on because of the gaslighting, the lying, the deceit, everything that's going on. You often feel like you really don't know what reality is, and so that makes it very hard to leave. I was in it for 33 years. So, of course, now the average time that it takes anyone in domestic abuse, it takes them like 7 tries to get
7,
out.
yes. Yeah.
Yes. And it's really hard. So, even if it was in my mind, like I remember talking to my therapist going, okay, I'm going to try and leave next month. And she'd be like, okay, I had a plan, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. And so I've talked to so many people on my podcast, and even just they say, make a plan, keep a journal that sort of says, these are the patterns I'm seeing. Is this appropriate? Is this right? Is this the life I want to live? Is he doing something to me? All these things. So making a plan, my plan was really, I'm just going to go send a message by leaving for a week and go live at my friend's house. And my therapist finally said, well, you've been infinitely clear with him what you want and what you need and don't need, all the things. So he's either unwilling or he's unable to do what you need. And
Right.
after 32 years of being married, I could tell he just was unwilling. Like, you can't really not understand what your wife needs. That I need you to whatever, stop whatever the things you're doing. You know what I mean? And oftentimes there's a woman and another woman involved, or multiple women. That's
Multiple.
just,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's just a pattern that they have because they have a deep need,
Yeah.
that, and it's often a mother wound, and so they often are trying to fill that. And I just had to ask him to stop many things over and over and over, and he wouldn't. And every time they say, "I'm so sorry, I'll stop," and you say, "Okay." I mean, all you're doing to them is giving them permission to do it again because they really don't care. They're like,
Right.
"Oh, she's giving me permission." So all that to say that it took a while for me to finally say, "You know what? I can't live one more day like this." So my therapist had said to me, where will you live and what will you do for money? And I said, I don't know and I don't care. And she said, oh, you're ready to go. And I was gone soon after that. I really thought we were getting divorced for irreconcilable differences because it's very surprising to me that once I left the marriage, I was starting to heal because you do get clarity when you're out of abuse. Your brain starts to heal because you're not in constant fight or flight. Your brain is actually starting to heal and you can actually get your brain back. It's amazing. And you can start to think like a normal person again. And a few months later, I did find out that he had been seeing somebody that I suspected he had been seeing. And in that moment, I felt like I got a download. And I said, oh my gosh, this is narcissism. And I didn't even know what it was. And now I feel like I'm an expert.
Yeah, I think you are too. I feel like you are too. Um, and I think something you said. I just
Yeah,
want to go back because
sure.
I heard this. Attended a workshop for attorneys that they were
Okay.
actually talking. They had a therapist come in and talk about narcissists. And
Okay.
one of the things that she said was most people see a narcissist as somebody that's overflowing with them with their sense of confidence, their sense of self-worth,
Mm,
their sense of grandiosity. But instead, think of a narcissist as an empty vessel that can
yeah.
never be filled. And so they have to keep drawing attention, love,
Yes.
respect. What they have to constantly keep filling that.
Oh, yeah.
And the best way to deal with a narcissist is to cut off that supply and just
Yeah.
say, to hell with you, buddy. Don't care. And they will
Yes.
go to extremes. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know. And again, I don't like to ask guests about personal stuff. So don't feel you have to support this or not. But I've had clients who have said, my ex has phoned up and it told me they're killing themselves if I don't come home. They
Right.
have called the police and said that they're going to commit suicide.
Yes.
And they will burn down the world
Yes.
to spite you, just to make sure that you don't win. They will burn down the world. So when people say,
Yes.
in my divorce, I'm just going to give the narcissist what they want and it's going to end the conflict. Oh no, it won't, because you will always have something that they're going to want to come after to
Oh
burn
my
down your world.
gosh. And it really depends on the person, but yes, they will do anything to manipulate the situation. So I remember in my mediation, so in Nevada, you don't have to necessarily use a lawyer because it's a 50-50 state. We didn't have anything to fight over. And so the mediator, we were sitting in the office and I'm still friends with her to this day. She's a very nice person. I became friends with her during the divorce proceedings. It was really funny. She's just a very nice person. And so I talked to her, like a year later and said, I had a really hard time during the mediation. And she said, why? And I said, because I was not healed. I remember just sitting there really quietly because, by the end, they want you quiet. They don't want you having your own opinions. Everything. Thank God Nevada is a 50-50 state because I didn't have to fight for anything. my friends were all like, "Hey, just be careful. Make sure you get what you deserve and all this stuff." And I'm like, "No, no, I trust him. He's fine." Now I have to just tell everybody, if you are in a divorce like this, it is high conflict. And no, you do not know your person. You do not know a narcissist, because they are, like you said, an empty vessel. They're a facade. They have this facade, and I have helped curate that facade for my family, because my kids told me after, they said, "We don't even know who he is."
Yeah.
He was a completely different person. So it's just really stressful. And even when, if they're threatening suicide or anything like that, it's all manipulation, and it's also not your responsibility. I know that we want to feel that way, but it's just part of almost like codependency, where we're feeling, we want to feel that way even with our family members that are on drugs and alcohol or something.
Sure.
We want to take care of it, and it's somehow we can fix it. We can't.
Yeah.
And it's all part of the manipulation. It's so hard.
And yeah,
it's
and so just distancing yourself from that. And so if they
Yes.
call and say, "Hey, I'm committing suicide," you just say, "You know what? As soon as I'm hanging up the phone, I'm calling 911.
Yeah.
First responders will be at your address immediately." And
That's
do it.
perfect.
Call
Right?
it. Because
Yes.
call them in. There's no false call, because you were told that he was going to commit, or she was going to commit suicide.
Yes,
Make the
exactly.
call. Do not let them slide on that. And then they'll learn, because it makes them look bad. Who wants
It
all your
does.
neighbors knowing what police cars and ambulances
Exactly.
showing up at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever?
It's seriously. And if there's any way that you can go full no contact, which is blocking on all social media and your phone. So now, my phone, because I have kids with him, he has a relationship with only one of our kids, but I do, his phone number is not blocked in my phone, but it's not accessible. Like, I don't have it just sitting there, so if he called me, I would recognize the phone number. But if you can go full no contact, you are going to feel so much better, because if they're not saying that they're going to commit suicide, the other thing they could be doing is saying, like, "I finally found the love of my life."
And they will have found that perfect person, won't they? And they'll be
Oh,
so much better than you.
yes. So much better than you. And they're doing it on purpose. And I was just in a group, and this woman has been with her husband for years and years and years, like I had. And that to me was the most painful thing, was to see that. And I thank God for my older children. My children are grown. And I said, "Oh no, dad's off doing whatever with the new girlfriend and doing all these things." And my daughter was like, "Or is he love bombing her?"
Yeah.
It's like, so that's why it's so important to understand the terms, why I was boring enough to stick a glossary in my book, because I think it's so important to understand the terms, because when you know why they do it, look, it doesn't excuse their behavior and it doesn't hurt any less, but when you understand why they do it, it helps in your healing.
Right.
And that's the thing that was helpful for me.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful tool. And to recognize that, there's a lot of research that says that they have extreme attachment disorders,
Yeah.
that they have probably had some kind of dysfunction in their
Yes.
childhood. And
Yes.
in some ways, they are just completely damaged.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't excuse all the damage and all the ripple effects that they have throughout,
Right.
society, but it does, I guess we can be empathetic and understand that the best way to deal with them is to not deal with them. And I
Right.
agree with you with the phones. Obviously, if you have kids together, you're going to have
Yeah.
a way to stay in contact. But you can, as the person who has become more confident and more empowered, you can
Yeah.
choose whether or not you pick up that call or let it go to voicemail. And nobody says you have to answer. This is
Yeah.
garbage that you have to respond to texts and phone calls and messages within a matter of seconds. There
You
is
don't.
nothing.
Yeah.
Never. You can pick your
Never.
time and place when you want to actually go through that. And I
Yeah.
suggest you do it when you're feeling super powerful, when you're
Right.
emotionally and mentally fresh. And if you want, have somebody there with you, like,
Yes.
a support person that you trust. So,
Well, I
Laura-
wonder if I could real quick
Yeah.
talk about two things that with using that when you're talking to them, try using the gray rock method, which is very just simple words, okay, things like that. If they're things like that, because they might actually spew some hateful words at you. We do not have to respond to them. We do not have to defend ourselves. The answer can be okay, or if there's no response needed, you don't have to say anything. And then the other thing that you had mentioned was being empathetic, and that was a hard one for me. Forgiveness, empathy towards the narcissist, and so I hold space, and I wanted to offer that to your listeners. I hold space for two people: the 6-year-old little boy who needed his mommy's love and was probably damaged by her, and just wanted her to love him.
Yeah.
But I don't hold empathy for the grown ass adult who decided to use abuse instead of getting help. And so it's a weird place to be, but it's part of cognitive dissonance to really hold space for two people. And so it helped me in my forgiveness journey to be able to understand there is a damaged little boy inside of that man. And so I don't know. That was helpful to me to be able to say, like, okay, it's okay if I understand both of those concepts. It's okay, because it was hard for me to have any empathy for the grown man.
Oh, sure. Oh, yes. And I'm not suggesting that you necessarily have to have. And I really like that idea of feeling empathetic for the child who was wounded probably by his mother.
Yes.
But still, like you said, the grown-ass man can make a choice whether to continue on with this behavior. So,
right, exactly.
Laura, tell us again the title of your book, your current book, your new book, and your podcast. So if people want to get that, because I read your book. I think it's on order, don't I think because the last time we talked, I think I ordered it. If not, I'm definitely going to because I want to.
Great.
So what are the two books that you got out?
My current one is called Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse. And so it's actually my whole story and my journal entries of my healing journey, and then how you can heal. And I give you some tips. And then also what was going on in the mind of the narcissist, and then how I dealt with it. So I find I don't know, a lot of people are telling me it's been helpful. It was really therapeutic for me to read it. And unfortunately, a lot of people tell me it's their story too. So it's kind of sad. But I want you to feel like you're not alone, because I felt very alone when I got divorced, especially when I found out he was a narcissist and I had been in abuse. I felt really ashamed. I don't want anybody else to feel that way. And that's why I talk about it. And my other book is called There Is Hope, 52 Keys to Healing After Divorce. And I give you 52 things that you can try this year, and you don't even actually have to be divorced, but it's just a good way to help build your self-esteem, to help you move forward, so that when you are learning how to set healthy boundaries, that you have that whole thing. That's my big thing: laughter, healthy boundaries, self-esteem. those are my things. They're good for us every day, all the time. And my podcast is That's Where I'm At podcast, and I speak to women. My focus is women, but I speak to women about their abusive relationships and how they have healed and how they are helping others after, where they're at now. So how they're helping others. And
I have listened to a few episodes of your podcast, and it's great. And even though I've never been in a relationship, a marriage with a narcissist. Yes. I know that I have worked with a narcissist at least twice. So
they're everywhere.
And that's, that's sometimes an even more, well, it's not even more, that's completely wrong, false statement, but it's a different type of relationship, because if they're your boss, your financial livelihood is hanging, but you don't have that marriage relationship. So it's really, it's really hard to figure that one out too.
My next book is actually on that. It's about leadership skills, and I will be talking about narcissistic relationships in the workplace. So that's my next book.
Yes. Bullies in the C-suite is
that's right. My goodness, that's a good one. Yes, it's true. Unfortunately, they're everywhere.
They are. Laura, thank you so much. If people are listening to this and going, oh my gosh, I need to find out more, what's the best way to reach out to you?
My website is that'swherei'matpodcast.com, and you can find me on all the socials on That's Where I'm At Podcast, and my book is on Amazon, but you can find me everywhere, that'swherei'matpodcast.com. All my links are in there. You can find all my YouTube, my podcast, my books, everything, and even sign up to talk with me one-on-one if you want to. If you feel like you need someone to chat with about what you're going through, I'm here.
Fantastic. Laura, thank you so much. You've been a wealth of information. I've really enjoyed this discussion. And I hope that if you are listening and you're going like, wow, my story, there's some elements of my story that it seems to be the same as Laura's, please reach out to her, or at least get some more information, do some reading. because this is a tough thing to be going through. It's like divorce on steroids when you're dealing with this. So
it is,
yeah,
unfortunately. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Laura. And I want to thank everybody for listening in to this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next week. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.